So raise your hand if you know at least one person in your life who bought a Switch 2 because of Pokopia. Off the top of my head, I can count at least 3 people in real life who bought a Switch 2 just to play Pokopia. And it's crazy because when Pokopia was first announced, I felt like the overall thoughts on this game existing was like, you know, it looks cute, but like, kind of like, who asked for this? It's just another spin-off Pokemon game. But then the game releases and Pokopia becomes undoubtedly the sleeper hit of 2026 and a Game of the Year contender. Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. My name is Anna and here on this channel we talk about all things video games. Initially I wasn't going to do a video on Pokopia, but after playing it myself and seeing just how big of a game it ended up being, I realized it was too good of a game, too popular, too relevant for me not to make a video on it. In this video, I want to talk about my thoughts on the game, obviously, now that I've maxed out all the environmental levels in the major areas and rolled credits on Pokopia. I want to talk about the extreme FOMO and the crazy wave of Switch 2 purchases this game has led to, and the feelings of 2020 Animal Crossing New Horizons days this game revived. And oh, of course, we will be talking about the comparisons of Pokopia to Animal Crossing in general as well. But first, let's get into my thoughts on the game itself. This is by far the most addictive game that I played this year. Not that I played a lot of games this year, but this is like one of the first games in a while where I can like confidently say, wow, I am so addicted to this game. I know other people online have talked about Pokopia in a way where it's like a drug to them.
Yeah, I think they laced every cartridge, every eShop purchase with a fentanyl.
Like it's like a sweet release of being able to play Pokopia after a long day of work. People say, I think about Pokopia when I'm not playing Pokopia, and when I'm playing Pokopia, I don't even think about how much time has passed playing Pokopia because I'm just so into this game. I've also seen a lot of people who say like, you know, I don't typically play these types of cozy games, but I find Pokopia to be super fun and super addictive. I think that says a lot about the quality of its gameplay, despite this being not my usual jam. Speaking on the game itself, we got to talk about like the sheer amount of content and things to do in the game. With the amount of quests, habitats to build, items to collect, Pokemon to discover, notes to find, capturing photo ops, and areas to level up. It's crazy how much there is to do in Pokopia without even getting to the decorating, which I think a lot of us will argue is like the most time-consuming thing about the game. The first 10 hours just absolutely flew by. I was working on a very small patch of grass in the Withered Wastelands area, the very first area, thinking like this was my end game. This was going to be my main hub where I build my town and get all the Pokemon. And then I got to the second area, Bleak Beach, and I was like, oh my god, I did not realize that I was going to basically rinse and repeat what I just did for Withered Wastelands, but for another area, and that there were more than 2 areas to do that all over again. I was like, oh my god, this game is gigantic. After learning that there were better decorating mechanics to get and things to upgrade later in the game, I ditched decorating altogether and went with a game plan of just progressing the story and completing the quest so I can do all the decorating stuff later and reduce the amount of time it takes to decorate with all like the better mechanics you get. And after over 50 hours of doing all of that and rolling credits, I now feel like I'm ready to actually start playing the game in earnest, now that I feel like I'm ready to do the town building and the decorating, which is crazy. I feel like that South Park meme where they say like, what do we do now?
Now we can finally play the game. Oh yeah!
Speaking of the decorating and building capabilities in general, I've seen people create castles, subway stations, beachside resorts, hot air balloons, a dollhouse, a functional calculator, a divine beast from Breath of the Wild, and a recreation of Rito Village. I should have known that the Japanese players were going to go crazy after what we've seen them do in games like Animal Crossing. The possibilities for decorating and building whatever you want in this game feels pretty endless and limitless, that I think that's why a lot of us felt overwhelmed getting to even that portion of the game, which is why I went into like project manager mode and made like a whole list I have like a whole Notion board in terms of like what I want to eventually build in like Pallet Town, because I wanted to stay organized on like what exactly I wanted to do with all the land that's available in the game. I think there's a lot of polish, and the bright colors in the game also make a lot of the builds look amazing. And it's funny that it's made me think of like architecture in like a Pokopia lens. Like I started looking up things on Pinterest because like I wanted to make like a cute greenhouse or like apartment buildings, and I just like don't have like the creative mind to just think of something like that. So like I've started to look at architecture. I was on a run the other day in like a pretty neighborhood, and I was looking at the apartment buildings, and I'm like, maybe I should take pictures of these buildings because I think they would look cute in Pokopia. And of course, a big part of the appeal of this game is being able to do all of this in a Pokemon universe. Discovering all the Pokemon and seeing them roam around and like interact with each other and be your friend and actually talk to you. I think that this is everything that I've ever asked for as a Pokemon fan. Like, who doesn't want to live in a big city full of Pokemon? I love how the Pokemon have different personalities to them. They have different greetings based on what kind of Pokemon they are. And we're able to see like a different side to Pokemon from the mainline games now that we are actually able to communicate with them. It's also really cool seeing them not just like interact and talk to each other, but play with toys. You get to play mini games with them, and you get to collect like unique moments on camera. And I love that the Pokemon aren't just for show, like they are actually very important for rebuilding and restoring the civilization and the community that was broken down. And they could really immensely help you in decorating and building whatever you want. And lastly, this game has an actual story to it. I think it was a pleasant surprise for many of us, including myself, to know that you can actually roll credits in this game. Like, I thought it was just going to be like a sandbox decorating type of game that didn't really have an end to it. And it wasn't until the first couple days of the game being out that I learned that you can actually roll credits because there's an actual story and lore to uncover. I thought that the deeper mystery of what happened to the humans was like a really heartwarming story to unearth. I also really like how there's like quite a bit of environmental storytelling. Like, when you're exploring the different areas, like you can clearly tell that there was an office here that the humans use, or like a kitchen. And I think that curiosity of like exploring the different parts of the land leads players to a lot of interesting places to discover. And I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously, but I ended up crying after the credits rolled because it really is like a really wholesome story that you get to learn about. And I think like just knowing the connections that you made with the Pokemon and like what happened to the humans and stuff, yeah, it's a tearjerker for sure. Now, I don't have a lot of cons when it comes to this game, but the biggest one is definitely the storage management. The storage management in this game definitely sucks. I don't like how you have to manage so many boxes to find all the things that you are looking for. I think they could have definitely improved on this point, and I hate how you actually have to jump between areas to get to different storage boxes. But that's about it. I actually don't really care about the other critiques I've seen of this game, like the lack of character customization, because I don't think the game was supposed to super focus on Ditto as a protagonist anyways. But yeah, other than the storage, I don't really have a lot of like big complaints when it comes to Pokopia. I really thought this was a super excellent game. Pokopia is actually the first 5 out of 5 star game that I have rated since Astrobot of 2024. So it's been over 30 games and over a year since I've given a game this high of a rating. In terms of review ratings, Pokopia is the highest rated game in 2026, sitting right next to Resident Evil Requiem, and it currently has an 89 on Metacritic, and it's actually the highest reviewed Pokemon game of all time based on Metacritic scores. It ended up selling more than 2 million copies in 4 days. I think this game has its lock in the Game of the Year nominations list, and it's just an excellent game within and outside of its genre. Now, to zoom out from the game a little bit, Pokopia was definitely an unexpected hit that quickly turned into FOMO. I think when the reviews came out for Pokopia a few days before its release, people were mostly shocked at how this ended up being the highest rated Pokemon game of all time. And I think that, plus like after seeing the breadth of how much this game actually contains, I think it gave a little bit of optimism toward people who really care for Pokemon in terms of, is Pokemon heading in the right direction again? Obviously, there's been a lot of critique towards Pokemon games in general the past couple years with the amount of quality that is invested in the Pokemon games, with the lack of polish or like the gameplay quality that people have criticized. But I think with the combination of Pokopia being really fucking good and the trailer for Pokemon Winds and Waves looking pretty promising, I think people are starting to feel a little bit optimistic towards, like, is Pokemon back? Are the games going to be good again? Is this the quality that we've been complaining about finally back in the games again? But going back to Pokopia itself, I think like when people start to understand just how much this game contains, I think that's when people were like, oh, I need to jump on getting this game. I need this game right now. I need to inject this in my veins because I'm seeing what people can do in this game and I need to be able to do that myself. It looks too fun to miss out on. I've been posting Pokopia content since the game has released, and every post I think relating to Pokopia, I at least get a few comments saying like either this game made me cave and buy a Switch 2, or don't tempt me in buying a Switch 2 to play this game. So since a lot of people asked, if you want my personal take on whether it's worth it to buy Switch 2 and get Pokopia, which is $70, I would say that there's no short answer to this question. To be fully transparent with you guys, I did not pay for either Pokopia and for my Switch 2. Both were gifted to me through Nintendo, so I obviously am very, very grateful for that, but that's why I feel a little bit awkward answering this question. So I just want you guys to know that. But for someone like me who spent easily over 1,000 hours on my first base Switch 1, I already actually pre-ordered the Switch 2 because I knew that the console was going to be worth it for me based on how much I used my Switch 1. If you're someone who maybe already has a Switch 1 but didn't really use it, I don't know if the Switch 2 is going to be super worth it for you at this time. But there's also like thinking about like the future games that are coming. Like if you definitely want to play like Fire Emblem, maybe you should get the console now so you can just like get in on this Pokopia hype if you are going to end up getting the console anyways in the future. Also, then you can avoid the potential rumored price hikes that's happening to the console. But I will say, if Pokopia is your type of game of like, you know, the sandbox decorating type of game, you could easily put 100, 500, maybe 1,000 hours into this game because yeah, there's a lot you can do with the game. And if you feel like you can really invest your time into it, I would say the game is worth it. I just don't feel super comfortable telling you what you should do with that amount of money because obviously it's a lot of money and everybody has different situations and preferences on how they want to enjoy games. Needless to say, this game gave many of us flashbacks to 2020 Animal Crossing New Horizons COVID days with the type of game it is, this very addictive, decorating, cozy type of game that we can sink many, many hours into. Speaking of Animal Crossing, now let's address the elephant in the room of Pokopia being compared to Animal Crossing. So I admit I might be an instigator when it comes to comparing the two games because I posted a video right when Pokopia released comparing the two games against each other. And yeah, that video ended up doing numbers. I ended up gathering about like 2,000 comments, people wanting to chip in their opinion on this. Basically, to summarize, my argument was that Pokopia basically fulfills a lot of Animal Crossing players' needs by solving a lot of the complaints we had for New Horizons that ultimately made me question, where does Animal Crossing go from here? My main arguments were, one, there's way better building mechanics in Pokopia with 1,000 times more land to work with. What it would take to decorate a small piece of land in Animal Crossing New Horizons would take like a quarter of the time in Pokopia with the type of mechanics it offers. There's variety to the land as well with the different kind of biome inspirations that are in the game. Two, there's more variety to the personalities of the Pokemon inhabitants. A big critique of New Horizons is that a lot of the villagers lost their personality and spice to them. A lot of them feel very bland compared to their previous games. And the Pokemon are just like more involved in what you do in the game. They're not just like walking around, their actual abilities to them and ways that they can help you you out in terms of community building. 3, the pacing and content is much better and much more vast. One thing that Pokopia absolutely crushes on is the amount of things that you feel like you need to do, and there's no need to time travel. One of my hard rules for playing Pokopia, because I wanted to be more intentional in my playthrough with it, was that I was not going to time travel, and that was a really easy thing to avoid with Pokopia because I just like constantly had things to do. There were tons of things that I could work on. Compared that to Animal Crossing New Horizons, I was time traveling day one because I felt like there was not much to do other than wait for buildings to be constructed, and I needed time to pass to feel like I could actually have a fun time with the game. And then 4, Pokopia has an actual story and lore to uncover, which I guess is just related to the lack of content and a pacing issue that Animal Crossing New Horizons has. And before people come for me saying like, why are you talking so much shit on Animal Crossing? I know ball, okay? I know ball. I don't actually know where my GameCube copy for Animal Crossing is, but I've played every single mainline Animal Crossing game that's ever been released. When I was comparing Animal Crossing to Pokopia, people thought that I was like kind of like shit talking Animal Crossing, but I didn't really see it that way. I actually thought I said the comparison in a quite pragmatic way, as I often do when I talk about games. I try to be real with how I think these games make me feel. I don't see it as bashing on Animal Crossing. Rather, it's just like a natural question that came up as someone who loves Animal Crossing, but can also recognize that there are things about Pokopia that kind of shits on it. So the main points and rebuttals I think people wanted to make after thousands of comments that I gathered were: 1, Animal Crossing and Pokopia are completely different games. 2, Dragon Quest Builders 2 came out before Pokopia, and it's basically the same thing in a different font. And 3, Animal Crossing needs to go back to its roots. So I will get to talking about each and every point. I'm going to address the first 2 points together. So yes, I agree that Pokopia and Animal Crossing are completely different games. That is very clear to me, and I hear you, I see you, I understand you. But I think the reason why that the comparison comes up in the first place is because of the proximity of players who are playing both games. I think it's not a stretch at all to say it's very likely that a lot of the people who play New Horizons are the same people playing Pokopia, and I think that has to do with 1, they're both Nintendo IP, and 2, they have very similar aesthetics. This is also why I don't think that there's much point to saying like Pokopia is Dragon Quest Builders 2 in a different aesthetic, because while yes, I totally understand that Dragon Quest Builders 2 is the blueprint for Pokopia made by the same developers and it came before it, I think a lot of people who are playing Pokopia have never actually heard of Dragon Quest Builders 2 until Pokopia came out, including myself. And that's no disrespect to the game. I'm sure it's a great game, especially if it's basically the same thing as Pokopia. I think the player base just being different just has to do with Dragon Quest Builders 2 having quite a different aesthetic, and the genre leaning more towards like JRPG rather than cozy life sim. I don't have like actual data to back this up, but this is why I assume that a lot of us didn't know Dragon Quest Builders 2 before Pokopia came out, and why I don't think there's much overlap in terms of audience demographic between the 2 games. So while acknowledging that Pokopia and Animal Crossing are different games, I think the comparison exists because I think that Pokopia offers a lot of components with its gameplay that make up for Animal Crossing New Horizons players' complaints, the parts of Animal Crossing that feel lacking that I just mentioned before. So as a result, I think a lot of Animal Crossing New Horizons players can feel satisfied with what Pokopia offers. Ultimately, I think that the comparison is good because I've always been on the boat of like creative competition is good. It drives inspiration, it drives innovation, it fuels the need for new creative ideas, and comparing and looking at both games in this kind of critical manner is productive for the growth of the games. Going back to the final point about Animal Crossing going back to its roots, I think I agree with a lot of people who commented about this. I think Animal Crossing's goal shouldn't be to one-up Pokopia in its like decorating and building mechanics, because that wasn't really the point of the Animal Crossing games in the first place. Animal Crossing was more so about slow life, relationship with villagers, serendipitous moments as you did everyday tasks, and this nostalgic, melancholic passage of time as you slowly collected things and memories. I think Animal Crossing New Horizons went against this in many ways, with its focus on it being more of a sandbox game, and that being coupled with making bland villagers. And I think everyone's obsession with making beautiful islands encouraged burnout and rushing through the content rather than live this kind of slow village life we remember. I also read a few comments about like, what if Animal Crossing just goes bigger and better in terms of the building? What if we just make it like a full-blown city? But to me, that really goes against Animal Crossing's identity. I'm wary of it completely losing its roots if it goes that direction, because again, I don't think that it should be about the sandbox, about the building and terraforming when it comes to Animal Crossing. So I think I agree with most of the comments saying like, bring the focus back to villagers and relationship building in that way, and the community you build through the people living in town, because that really was like the essence of the older Animal Crossing games. And we really need to look at titles like New Leaf, which I think a lot of people consider to be the best title in the Animal Crossing series, and go back to examining what made people really attached to that game. And people might raise me with, wait, Pokopia still though is kind of lacking in like character customization and the life sim aspects of Animal Crossing. But I raise you with we have Tomodachi Life coming out next month. And this game is already going viral with its demo release. I've seen people already create some crazy looking memes and designs with the character customization tools that it offers. And having played the demo yesterday myself, this game is going to be all about like the life sim aspect, the relationship building between all the Miis on the island, and the comedy that happens in between all the interactions with the villagers. So where are we at with Animal Crossing then? I don't doubt that Animal Crossing is going to be successful no matter what direction it ends up going. New Horizons was obviously very, very successful with the amount of copies it sold at the beginning of COVID. But I also think that Animal Crossing is starting to feel too close in proximity to the other Nintendo games like a Pokopia or Tomodachi Life, that for the series to feel like it's back to its glory days, I think it needs to go back to the lab. I think the series needs to figure out how to stand out again. I think it needs to re-examine itself to figure out what exactly made the games great in the first place and how do they build off of that. With Pokopia and Tomodachi Life coming out very close to each other, honestly, like a little too close to each other. I'm just like getting ready to start decorating in Pokopia, and we're already talking about the Tomodachi Life demo. I'm kind of like, wait, we're moving too fast here. With these two games coming out, I think like we won't be seeing a new Animal Crossing game for quite a long time, I predict, especially with the 3.0 update coming out earlier this year. I still think it's going to be a couple years before we see anything Animal Crossing related, and I really hope that they think really hard on what direction they want to take the next game. At the end of the day, though, this is a very like, my steak is so juicy, my lobster's so buttery situation for Nintendo, because all three IP obviously belongs to them. So does it really matter for Nintendo? I don't know. But that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. What are your thoughts? Did you get Pokopia? What are your thoughts on it? Did you end up buying a Switch 2 for Pokopia? What do you think about it compared to Animal Crossing or other games you played? Now that I've maxed out all the environmental areas besides Pallet Town and rolled credits, I'm going back to Pallet Town and finally building up that. I think I'm going to make that my main hub where I create my ultimate Pokemon civilization. So I'm going to be working on that. Hopefully I can keep that up while still playing other games like Tomodachi Life coming up. We'll see though, but I'm still very much into the game. I love it so much and I'm playing it every day still. So we'll see how much longer I keep playing it. I really want to keep it up though, because I have very big plans for how I want my pretty town to look. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to read them, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.